Hallo und herzlich willkommen auf dem 40. Filmfest München und ich sitze hier mitten im Festival Trubel mit Andrew Bujalski, der wieder hier ist, muss man sagen, mit einem neuen Film, mit There. It's a pleasure to have you back in Munich. We've shown so many of your films and it's not your first time here.
No, but I think it was 2006, which was, I'm realizing, not recently at all. I was much younger.
But do you enjoy Filmfest Munich? Do you have lovely memories?
Of course I do. And I was just at the English Gardens where I'd been in '06, and so beautiful to be there and see that again. And it's particularly meaningful to me to be here because my cinematographer, Matthias Grinsky, who I've done 7 movies with now, lives here. And so to visit him in his natural habitat was a thrill, and to have him here is great.
He didn't even have to travel for this film, but we will talk about all the technical stuff of There in a second. But before, can you tell people who haven't seen the film yet, what is the film about? What are the characters that we meet? What is There about?
Ooh, it's hard to describe. I think it's ultimately it's a movie about trust and about faith. It's certainly a kind of unconventional structure, but it's a series of conversations between characters who I think are all struggling with trusting each other and struggling with faith in different ways, and as we go, more is revealed to us. But it's a very, very peculiar movie made in a very peculiar way.
You just mentioned it. I mean, the film, of course, happened during the lockdown, during the pandemic, and many directors had to find a way to make films with a lot of testing and I don't know what else. You chose a completely different path. How did you do that? Can you explain how you made There?
So the trick of our movie is that every performer is working in isolation. So it's a lot of duet scenes, a lot of scenes with quite a lot of intimacy between characters, and yet those people were never in the same room and never saw each other's performances until they saw the finished movie. So it's a kind of I think we're taking a magic trick that's always in cinema. Every time we cut from you to me, these things could have been hours apart, and maybe we were all imagining it all along, but we just took that to an extreme and said, what if these people really were 1,000 miles apart and yet connecting across this disconnection? And so, it was a grand cinema experiment to me. To me, it was really about more than the lockdown or COVID or any of that. It was about, I think, how we all struggle to feel connected in any moment.
There are so many questions, but how did the actors react when they finally saw who they were actually playing with? I mean, they played with a phantom partner, right?
Yes, yeah. So for the most part, actors were working with, they would have somebody on set to run lines with them, but then that person's not in the movie. I don't know. I think, of course, for the most part, people were excited and pleased to see how good the other performances were on the other side, but I can't speak for them. And, perversely enough, there are 8 people in the movie. When we premiered the movie, I managed to, there are 4 of the cast that were able to attend, and when I got them all together, I realized, I still don't have any 2 who are in a scene together. I still haven't had that grand meeting between all of them. It remains only on the screen.
And how did that change your perspective on movie making? Because, you mentioned it. Basically, making fictional movies is having people say lines that they're not their own, and they're speaking to a person who's not their significant other. So is that like I don't know, I imagine this experiment changes everything for you. Now you see, I took it on another level. Now I'm questioning everything about filmmaking.
Certainly, yeah. But, it did make me eager to go back and get some of the magic that you do get in a room together. It was just a different approach and a different kind of movie. And every movie I've made, you have to take it on its own terms, both technically, in the writing. Everything you're doing has to be connected in some way. So, we in some ways denied ourselves a lot of conventional things here, and I think we made something, I hope, magical and beautiful out of that. But, it also makes you eager to say, okay, well, I put down those tools this time, and now I want to pick them up and try something else. And
let's talk about cameras, because, you've shot your first films on 16 millimeters. Then, of course, The Experiment, which is, of course, one of my favorite movies of yours, when you use the old analog video cameras, and now it's an iPhone, or it's iPhones. That's really loud.
It is, yeah.
How important is that for you, for the language of the film, the equipment that you use? Is it just something, that makes a look, or is it more?
I think when you sit down to conceive the thing, that's one of the biggest. It's a casting question, right? It's like we have to get the right actors for this, and we also have to figure out what are the images that are telling the story. And so, it's both the cameras you're using and how you're using those cameras. And I've been lucky, again, working with my great DP, Matthias Grunsky. We've worked in so many different formats now, and everything requires its own approach and its own way of thinking about it.
So just that I understand that Matthias was also at home, and he was doing his DOP job without picking up a camera for the film.
Yes, yeah. So the actors would be there would be a kind of micro crew. There would be essentially one operator for the iPhone, and usually a phantom cast member. Not always. Sometimes maybe there was an art person, but not always. So it was a crew of 1 to 3 people in the room, and then the rest of us were on Zoom. So I never went to the set. Matthias never went to the set. The producers never went to the set, and the set was all over the place. It was all over the States. There was some in Italy. There was actually a little bit here in Munich.
I'm not sure whether you like the term mumblecore, because mostly people don't like genre names. But when I think of what mumblecore stands for, I think of very realistic approaches and, a lot of talking, not too much action happening, and everything's about naturalism. How does there fit into this? Because I feel on the one hand it does a lot, and then on the other one it does not at all.
Yeah, well, I could never define mumblecore, because this was a label that, although I perversely had something to do with it getting into the world, it's not my label. But as far as naturalism is concerned, I think movies are always it's always some wrestling between the real and the unreal, the natural and the created, and so again in this movie we're taking things that are maybe inherent to cinema and pushing them to an extreme, but it did require the actors to be very alive to the moment in a way that's exciting to me. This was, I'm sure, the most grueling thing I've ever asked actors to do, and in some ways more like rehearsing or developing a play than conventional movie making.
I find something really interesting, and that is when I interview people, I often feel like this is also a weird kind of situation, because it's not like a natural way we talk to each other. I'm asking you questions, you don't know anything about me, but this whole question of intimacy, when people really talk to each other and are really present, and we're in the same space now together, is your movie also about this, about how we actually communicate, and do we actually, are we really together?
Absolutely. Everything I've ever done has been about people trying to understand each other and often failing. But that to me is the story of life.
I don't think we failed.
No, and we're doing okay, I think. Yeah.
I think we have to go inside and watch your film.
I'm sorry.
And one last thing, it's the 40th birthday of the Film Fest Munich. As somebody who has already celebrated his own 40th birthday, what do you wish for this festival that is such a big fan of yours?
All the happiness in the world, and good luck with your midlife crisis. It will go on for some time, but being 40 is a lot easier than worrying about turning 40. You're past the hump. Now it's all good things until you turn 50.
But you haven't, you're not 50 yet.
I haven't. I know, I've seen it happen though.
Yeah, we've met people who are 50. So thank you so much, Andrew. Have a wonderful stay in Munich. And now let's go inside and watch your film.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.